So we are live now, welcoming all the delegates and the participants for the day 2 of the FICCI Innovation Summit. We have Raj, who is the lead moderator for the track today. Thank you so much, Raj, for being there with us each and every time, helping us. And we have Vikalp, who's the brain behind the Arogya Setu app. Welcoming Raj and Vikalp for the session 1. And I would request Raj to take over from here and proceed the proceedings. Over to you, Raj.
Good afternoon, everyone. What I'm really excited with is a topic which is, typically when we look at any of the HR conferences, we don't talk about technology as much, but we talk about it fleetingly. And with the pandemic being in the context, I think one thing for sure has happened. All of us have become more technologically and digitally literate in our personal and professional lives. Our parents, our children, even staff at home, you would see them all going to the digital devices. But that's not it. I think for us, the context was really about this, not looking just at the silver lining of, yes, technology helping us solve the problems, but bringing optimism. And organizations have definitely realized and recognized that innovation and looking at converging technology through innovation is going to be key as we look at this decade. And technology always has an interesting perspective, especially with all of us, culturally as well. In industrial age, technology was something feared and maybe looked at as a differentiator. Then maybe in the last 20th century or so, and definitely last 50 years, it would have been seen as an enabler. Now, actually, it's the reason of being for many businesses. And actually, most of the businesses are talking about how technology is business first. What I'm also excited with is Vikalp coming over and talking about it. He really brings a practitioner's perspective. And on a personal note, Vikalp not only is just the Arogya Setu app creator, but I think he gave me a perspective into the mind of a technologist. We were trying to fix up a suitable time to just chat. And I said 9 o'clock in the morning. And he said, not really, 11:30. And when we got on the call and it was 9:30 or 10 in the night, he says, I'm a late, I'm a nocturnal animal and 9 is really early for me. So I kind of recognize that, diversity really brings different perspectives. And here also, I had to be a lot more inclusive. Thanks, Vikalp, for teaching me. And I can't wait for his session because what I'm sure is he's going to not only bring a practitioner's perspective on innovation and what we need to do. I call it the toolkit, but Vikalp has told me there's no toolkit for how we need to look at things and how do we bring innovation in our personal and professional spheres. Over to you, Vikalp. And before you jump in, maybe just a cue, also stay back, because what Vikalp is planning to do is presenting a context of how we can use technology to solve problems and drive innovation in our personal spheres. And then we will get into a very interesting session where all of us have a role to play in terms of co-creating the session, where basis the background or case study that he presents, we will kind of divide ourselves into various groups to bring about and make meaning of this perspective as well. Vikalp, can't wait.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks a lot for a warm introduction, Raj. And I think there's nothing to learn from getting up late in the morning. It's a habit that I want to change. And that's why I'm really, I'm afraid of HR, and there's so many HR practitioners here. Any developer will be afraid of HR. The way they can get into the minds of people and so on and so forth. But yeah, let me go back to what I'm here for. And thank you so much, Yuvraj, for the nomination, Vinti, Darshana, to bring me here and the FICCI team. I would love to share my presentation. Yeah. So is it visible? Great. So the idea is to talk about technology-driven innovation. And everyone knows about technology, everyone knows about innovation. There's nothing new to it, but I would like to share my perspective. And there's a lot being told about CXO perspective, but I really like to call myself a developer. And let me try to give a developer perspective around it that eventually can be read as a CXO perspective too. But before this, who am I? And you would see these random GIFs popping up here and there uh, during the presentation because I really, really love some of these series that I'm hooked to. So yeah, who am I? I mean, Vikalp Sahni, as Raj was mentioning, I'm a product of Kendriya Vidyalaya. Then did my engineering from NIT Silchar. Built GoIBibo, was the co-founder, ex-CTO of GoIBibo. Merged with MakeMyTrip, did a lot of amazing work at MakeMyTrip. Fortunately, get a chance to build Arogya Setu. Arogya Setu, again, as all of you know, has helped a lot during the pandemic. And now I'm off to my new health startup, which is called Eka Care. And Arogya Setu actually steered this whole thought of creating impact around health. So that's about me. I love in general Netflix series, and I'm a quite a passionate developer. So that's what I like to call myself. But why I'm here? Like by now you would be like, okay, this is fine. We know who you are, but why are you telling me all this? How can we get jump into the topic of technology-driven innovation? So to take you to this, I would like to basically build a story here, and the story would be how I see technology or what kind of challenges at a philosophical level a technology can solve. And let's look at the first such philosophy that is pertinent to whatever we are doing. Technology can change or convert a scarcity to an abundance. Now, this is a very profound thought. And what does this mean? This means that if there is a problem which is really difficult and there is a lot of scarcity to solve that, a technology can come in and make it an abundance. And let me give you an example. Look at this. This is nothing but a wall from Game of Thrones. It's really hard and difficult to get up the wall. But at that point in time, there's a technology of elevator came in, and that solved this scarcity and made it an abundance. Now, many people can go up the wall and have the view. Look at it in the more contextual or a contemporary perspective. 20 years ago, it was really difficult to book an air ticket. But internet came, an amazing product like MakeMyTrip came on the internet. And we all were booking practically tickets online. So the scarcity got converted to abundance. Same is the story with hotels. When GoIBibo, MakeMyTrip both started opening up hotels in 6 years ago. So it's a core tenet of the thinking that we apply whenever we are solving a problem. Is there a problem which is scarce in nature? Can we look at a technology and make that technology, and can that technology make this scarce problem to an abundance? But technology has more to offer. Let's look at what else. Technology challenges status quo. So it's not only about making scarcity to an abundance, but look at it, what's happening here. And I'll play a small video and I'll cut it in between. But this gentleman is Edwin Land. Edwin Land is was a CEO of Polaroid. Polaroid basically created that camera that can take out a printed image. Again, we all know Steve Jobs built the iPhone, beautiful camera, and so on and so forth. What they're trying to solve is capturing image, or basically solving for your memories. And look at this small black and white video of Edwin Land.
You're not able to hear the volume?
You can't hear the audio?
No.
Oh, okay. So maybe we'll just skip it. But what I want to allude here is, if you look at this video and available on YouTube as well, Edwin Land would look exactly like what Steve Jobs was doing when he was presenting iPhone and camera in the iPhone and so on and so forth. So what has happened? What has changed since these 40 years? It's exactly the same problem, that you have to keep your memories. It's exactly the same solution. You have to create a photo. But the technology has actually challenged the status quo and create an experience which is completely different, and build that innovation for Apple. So you should always keep on looking at such status quo and how you can challenge those status quos using technology. And lastly, technology is basically a dream or a fiction or a magic. So in 1926, there was this movie called Metropolis that actually gave us this idea of video phones. And now we have video phones all around. So not only scarcity to abundance, not only challenging the status quo, but technology can actually outrightly from ground up create experiences that are actually a dream or a fiction. So, and that's what is happening in today's world with AI and ML and so on and so forth. Look at what is happening in the autonomous cars. Look at what is happening with drones. Look at what is happening with robotics. There is so you can dream, and that dream can be fulfilled by the technology. But what is all this? By now, all of you would be feeling, okay, this is all gyan. Why are you giving us the gyan that we already know? Have you done something about it? And I'm sure some of you would have a similar expression. But let's talk about how and what this kind of a thought process will eventually lay in. And I would like to jump now and switch gear to more of an implementation and execution from a strategy. And let's talk about what I have done in my career so far. This was a chart that we saw in the month of March, maybe March 4th, 2020. This was a chart that practically got released by Kerala government to follow a patient flow. And this patient flow is of a COVID patient who is basically going to all of these places. And the police have to look at these and then try to figure out the contacts and try to go ahead and start checking for them so that the pandemic can be curtailed. Now, this, if I go back to the theory that we discussed, is a very, very difficult problem if you want to do it at scale. It's a problem which is scarce. If there are 1 million people who are suffering from COVID and we have to trace all of their contacts and exactly whom they have met and what they have done, it's really, really hard. So by March 10th or so, there's this discussion that started happening within GoMMT. And we realized that there is a way a technology can solve this scarce problem and make it in abundance, give this valuable data to the right people so that it can be leveraged to curtail the pandemic. The scarce problem was how to know the contacts. The technology solution was mobile. The technology solution was Bluetooth. And we know that mobile is ubiquitous in the country. And we started building a bit of a solution around that. Fortunately for us, our group CEO Deep has some connects with the Government of India, and Government of India was also thinking about this. So the whole private-public partnership thought process started. And we resulted in building a team. So there's this team that got built. We started with just 4-5 people. And these 4-5 people was doing nothing but initially building a prototype that was being tested, was being deployed into servers and so on and so forth. But eventually, when we got a nod and the NIC team also started collaborating and started giving us inputs on what needs to be built, we had to basically scale the team. So we scaled the team with some of the best minds in GoMMT, from GoIvivo, MakeMyTrip, Redbus, and obviously NIC team started helping us with all kinds of platforms that are available to launch it, with a very single core mission to launch something for the country to do the contact tracing. Now, this was a mission that, the thought of that mission was how a technology can solve that difficult problem of contact tracing. And the mission was to build it and take it to as many people as possible so that we are able to get the relevant information that can be acted upon by the authorities. This mission was so close to all of us that we practically delivered the app in 3 weeks, and the app got released in the month of April 2nd, and started giving a lot of valuable information directly to the patients or directly to the people who are at high risk. Now, look at the problem that we had in that earlier slide. In March, you would not know if you had come in contact with a COVID-19 patient. If there is a way in which I can give you anonymously that you have come to a contact with a COVID-19 patient and you have a moderate risk of infection or a high risk of infection basis your proximity, what eventually would happen is you would start taking care of yourself and not going out. And that is when you use the whole power of public or crowd and not necessarily always engaging with government agencies. But not only that, all of these people who are getting COVID-19 positive or are at a moderate risk or at high risk needs to be taken care. They should be taken care of. So we built entire backend, and this backend was nothing but dashboards and graphs and way in which we can give the right kind of information back to the government authorities so that they can create relevant strategies around solving for the pandemic. What happened? Look at this slide. This slide talks about various industries, various products reaching 50 million users. And in what time? So airline reached 50 million users, say in 40 years. If you look at mobile phones, reached 50 million users in 12 years. Internet took 7 years to reach 50 million users. The latest one was Pokemon Go. That took 19 days, and it took 19 days for Pokemon Go to reach 50 million users. But what happened when we launched Arogya Setu? We practically took 13 days to reach 50 million users. And this was flabbergasting for us. What has happened while we did this? Again, we converted scarcity to abundance. We leveraged technology, which is core to this particular problem to get the right relevant data for the teams, for the individuals, for the government, and eventually solving for the nation. We all felt really, really proud about it, and the mission accomplished, and we started handing over the project to government agencies and a beautiful public-private partnership where we ended up solving for the country. But this was a very unique situation, a situation where there is a pandemic happening, a situation where there is a lot of push from government and so on and so forth. Let's switch turns and talk about a business where a similar kind of an approach of challenging a status quo has happened that suddenly changed the whole business model and create a large amount of impact. If we look at this screen, what it says, and eventually you would realize that we are talking about Uber here. So there was a time when booking a taxi taxi used to get booked at all point in time, and you used to just call up or just go out in the street and say hi. But what Uber said is, I want to challenge that status quo. I want to create an experience that is much better than going on the road. I want to create an experience where you would get to know about your driver before you get into the cab. And what are the technology available today? That's mobile and that's location. So the mobile and location, if would have not existed, Uber would have not existed. Uber leveraged mobile, Uber leveraged location in a way that created a different kind of dynamics to book a taxi and challenging the way it was booked earlier. What has happened when Uber built it? It practically changed the earning per hour of or hourly wages for the driver partners, but not necessarily the same time commitment. So when Uber did it, what happens is now Uber drivers are actually running more or driving more while and creating more earnings per hour, while giving a better value to the consumer. So the entire chain, consumers are getting cheaper fares and drivers are getting more earnings per hour. Leveraging that technology, Uber was able to change this paradigm and create a better earning per hour for Uber drivers and create a better experience and a value for money for the passengers. So these are the fundamental technology layers that Uber or at Arogya Setu or at GoIbibo Make My Trip we leverage. And these levers of technology gives us absolute freedom to innovate and to build models that have never been seen. So I think by now I would have got some attention of yours. Obviously, there was a Gyan earlier, and there was a little bit of a story, a little bit of what did we do and how did we build it. But how can we get into implementing this in our organization? What is it that we should do so that we are technology driven and we are creating innovations that are technology driven? Let's look at a big word that we all call, and there is no harm in repeating the words that are really, really important. And that big word to me always has been culture. And in HR forums, in many, many discussions, we talk about culture. Now, a technology driven innovation needs a culture that is curious. A technology driven innovation, if you want to do in your organization, you would need people who back innovation or challenges the status quo. And this is what I've learned while building GoIbibo and when we were together at GoMMT. If you ask too many questions, or if you ask if you not allow people to express their passion, developers to express their passion, and culturally it's all practically a top down, you won't see innovation happening. Fortunately for me and for many of us developers at GoIbibo Make My Trip, we had a culture where curiosity was rewarded, where innovation was rewarded. And I think this is something that all of us understand how important it is. It's easy to understand, but it's really difficult to practice. And sometimes I feel and say that if you really want to measure if your culture fosters innovation, fosters technology driven innovation, you should look at results and not the processes. If your organization's results are stating that you are building products that are technology first, technology driven, and are innovative, then obviously your organization is culturally aligned, or else it's really hard to figure out if a culture is technology driven or innovation driven by the mere processes of it. But okay, we all understand about culture, but let's get into a little bit more nuanced, niche understanding of what is it that we have learned over a period of time in a more practical way. Now we've figured that there are 3 innovation strategies that generally can be followed. Look at the x-axis and y-axis. The x-axis is all about meaning, and meaning is where you are talking about users, user sensibilities, interfaces, and so on and so forth. And the y-axis is all about technology, performance, right? Meaning you can leverage to language. If I need to talk to you, I need to talk to you in a language that you understand. But technology is all about improving performance, improving things, how you do, and so on and so forth. Now, there's this small box, which is market pull user centric. This box is all about creating incremental features or creating incremental improvement on the product. And we'll take an example as well. But just to, for this particular slide, a Walkman is an incremental improvement over a tape recorder. The problem was I need to listen to music, but there was an incremental step that has taken to solve it while you are mobile, which was Walkman. But what has happened over a period of time? Flash drives came in. What have happened over a period of time? MP3 compression technology came in. And over a period of time, we've started getting a battery operated interfaces such as MP3 player and iTunes. So it just changed the entire paradigm when a technology push innovation and design driven innovation comes together to build something like an iTunes or an MP3 player. Suddenly you see Walkmans absolutely getting wiped out of the market. Let's look at this particular example in another context. And let's say, and this context is about entertainment. At some point in time, all of us would know that the entertainment was all about using video cassettes or CD or DVD, Blu-ray discs. I'm not sure how many of you would have used Blu-ray. I've personally not used any Blu-ray, but there was a time when Blu-ray was like quite big. But what has happened? The technology, again, on the y-axis started improving. And what has started improving? The compression technology from MPEG-2 to now HEVC. There's a massive improvement on the bandwidth. Now we are entering a 5G era where there is a very different level of mobile bandwidth that we are talking about. And there is a meaning change also. Mobile devices came into being, social behavior started started coming into picture. And eventually, a very profound innovation in entertainment happened, which is what we use all today. I don't see anyone using video cassettes or a DVD or a CD today. It's all about Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, or Netflix for that matter. So going back to the slide, what we always strived or tried to do is, if there is a new technology that is coming in, and if there is a new design and a product paradigm that is coming in, can we leverage them to create an epiphany? So the design, product and business and tech, if they all come together and they intersect at absolutely the right position, they would create magic. And that's what we have realized while building many products at GoIbibo, MakeMyTrip as well. The same example, you can put it into any industry, any innovation, any organization that you have seen. So you should look for such opportunities where, if there is a technological advancement and there is a new product design flows, if they can be combined together to create an innovation. How did we do it at GoIbibo? There was this very interesting flow of having a web check-in on WhatsApp that we created at some point in time. The whole idea was there was a new technology that has come in, and that new technology was conversation-based interfaces. And WhatsApp WhatsApp has released their API. So there was this chance of leveraging WhatsApp APIs to build these conversational interface. The design came in with a beautiful way of showing a seat layout right on the WhatsApp screen itself. Many of you would have experienced it. And the product actually came in, and the business came in for the right kind of solutioning from the flow perspective. And what has happened? This resulted in 600% growth in the seat selections for GoIbibo and a massive social media buzz. Everyone started loving this, because the problem of doing a web check-in at some point in time was really hard, because the interfaces of airlines and the way the workflow works is little too intensive. But this was nothing. This was just about chatting with people or chatting with a bot on WhatsApp, and your seats get booked. So the design, product, and tech delivered an experience which is for masses. And that's how, so that's the thought process. The thought process of delivering technology and design together to build innovative experiences has what driven us to build web check-in on WhatsApp. When we come to the organization, we always talk about culture. We always talk about how do you design the team. and we always talk about learning. So I would like to take a stab on what should be our learning strategies and what should be our training strategies. Now, when we look at innovation, when we look at technology driven innovation, we generally look at technology team, or we look at say product team, or we look at R&D team, and we train them with the right kind of an attributes that they should be aware of uh, about that particular tech, about the problems that they need to solve, which is right. But what is not, what we should change or what we should do is we should create translators in the organization. So you would train your R&D department on the tech paradigms, you would train your core technology people into the new tech paradigm so that they can innovate, they can drive. But you should also create translators in the organization who are not necessarily tech product design guys. They are your regular business folks. They are folks who are actually talking to the customers every day. And these translators should be exposed to the advancement of the technology by a regular training sessions, be it AI, be it ML, and so on and so forth. And what happens when you do that? When you create these translators, the entire organization start thinking of solutioning using a technology that is available and contemporary rather than maintaining the status quo. So just to give you an example, and if it makes sense to many of you, who are large practitioner in your uh, organizations, there's this course, AI for Everyone. It's a course that ideally should be done by everyone and not necessarily only by the R&D folks, only by the core tech, be it Raj Kamal, be it myself, be it anyone in the business department should actually, and there are many such courses. This is nothing but improving your understanding on how the technology operates, what exactly is happening, so that these translators can eventually translate the business processes to the core tech or to the R&D department with right kind of a tech thought process. And we talk a lot about learning, and I spoke about creating translators. I also mentioned that there are these interesting uh, courses that we should do. But the other important aspect that we miss, especially on the R&D and core tech department, is to unlearn. Technology changes really fast, and there's one theory that I have. Uh, in a development team, design should change every 6 months to a year. A code, the programmers who write the code should change every 2 to 3 years, and the hardware should practically change every 5 to 6 years. And these numbers are coming down as we go forward. So what happens is, if I'm a programmer and I'm actually doing a programming in a particular language, maybe after 3 4 years, there's a better way of doing that or a better language that has come up. Now, I should definitely not hinge onto it. I should first unlearn that. If I don't unlearn that paradigm, if I don't unlearn the way used to do things earlier, I would not be able to do things in better way. And that's why we have seen there are disruptors that come in. There's a way an organization is doing work over a period of time, but then there is this new startup that comes up who just changes the way in which the software is being developed to a more contemporary way, and that just makes them much more faster, much more agile, much more nimble, and so on and so forth. So the training as a whole should not be seen in an organization department wise, at least on the technology front. You should create translators, and there has to be a deep focus on there has to be a deep focus on unlearning, especially for the technology team. I think I'm running out of time, so I'll try to do it a little faster. So there's a way in which great organizations have done have created themselves or called themselves as pioneers, investigators, experimenters, and passive. There's a study done by Morgan Stanley. So you should look at your organization and try to fit in your organization. This particular slides talk about level of AI understanding, but a similar slide or a similar parameters can be made for level of technology understanding. And then you should compare yourself. You should keep yourself in one of these pillars, whether you are a pioneer or an investigator or an experimenter or a passive. If you want to facilitate a technology driven innovation, you should at least be at an experimenter's or an investigator level. Pioneers, say Amazon, Google, Facebook are pioneers because they are inherently the tech driven companies, but one should strive to be at the level of investigators. And so did we. Just to end the topic, technology is all about change. We all know the number of changes that an individual will see in a year, thanks to technology, will be far more than the number of changes that a person would see 100 years ago. And this is not going to stop. There's a lot of discussion that happens on singularity, a lot of discussions that happens on what AI would do eventually. It would actually change the way we do many things. It is already changing things that we do earlier. I mean, be it working from remote or be it your regular family habits and so on and so forth. So the change is quite fast, and the change will continue to be even more faster. It's really important and imperative to adapt to that change and bring in the organization to a philosophy of keep on challenging the status quo and keep on changing fast. With this, thank you so much. I'll open it up for some questions.
Thank you, Vikalp. I would request the participants who are there on the Byte platform, they can post some questions for Vikalp in case you have any questions. You can click on the Q&A tab there and post in your questions.
In the meantime, let me ask a question, Vikalp,
Yeah.
to you. You talked about in the tripod design, technology, and business. Who looks at design? Who needs to spearhead design? Should the technology guys have an understanding of design, or the business guy?
Design is a very unique, and it's a subject that is to be headed by a subject expert. Like in case of GoMMT, we have a design team which is being led by a very senior designer, and it should be looked at as a parallel to a technology or team, or a parallel to a product and business team. Because many a things, design has to actually understand what technology can solve and match it with what people would understand. If you don't have a right kind of a mindset to perform these, if as a team, if you don't perform these together, you would not be able to reach to that magic. So it has to be, Raj, to answer your question.
The question really I had was that, who frames the questions for the design to work, and often what happens is business is looking at, they understand the problems, but they seek technology to help them out translate it. And sometimes technology guys say, no, business has to frame the problems. I can only fuse in. So how do you see that jugalbandi?
And sometimes design has to come up and say that this is how it needs to be done. I'll give you an example. There was a time when you would basically say that I want to, and let me take a very contextual example of Arogya Setu. So technology team has driven this solution that there is Bluetooth contact tracing and so on and so forth. But the design team came up with the interfaces, and they posed the problem back to technology that if we need to make people understand what a red means, what a brown means, what a green means, what a yellow means, you have to facilitate and come up with this tech. See, where I'm coming to, Raj, is don't consider design as a place which will facilitate a technology problem or a business problem. Design will come up with its own problems that needs to be solved by a technology team or a business team, because that is what a consumer wants. Look at Apple. Apple is an absolutely design driven organization or product driven organization. And for them, what is important is designing the right kind of an experiences for users that then gets translated into tech. So we should not, we should consider them as absolute parallel, and let them also derive problems and statements. I'm not sure if I answered you, but I would see them also absolutely doing the same thing as technology and product.
The question I had, and I saw the question also being raised, is, you talked about curiosity, and from an HR perspective, how can you engender or nurture curiosity in the organization?
See, it's a what I have learned in an organization is people try to ape each other or like imitate each other. Let's say if you have a person who is really curious and he has done something that might have not resulted in, let's say, a large scale business impact, but there's a right intent and a right problem to solve for. Reward them. When you reward such kind of a behavior in an organization, you would definitely see people trying to use that as a way to create impact for themselves and for the organization. One of the key thing that we used to do at GoIBibo was every year we used to run hackathon, and this used to be like a internal and an external both kind of hackathons. And the whole idea of hackathon was to instill this curiosity where we are not telling anything, or it's not a top down business driven product driven approach given to teams. And again, these teams are not technology team only. These teams used to be business teams as well. They used to think, they used to get curious about a particular problem, solve it, and then we used to reward it. So one good way to instill curiosity in an organization is to reward such kind of a behavior and create avenues to express such curiosity, such as hackathons.
I see one question there. You can see that.
Yeah.
Vinti?
Okay.
Yeah. So the question which has come here is, what attributes or key focus areas management should keep in mind while translating or implementing new technology in organizations?
See, it's a tricky question, and there is no right answer to it. So for first thing that a management should keep in mind is they should not fear of failure. So when you leverage or implement a new technology, chances of failure or chances of that technology not becoming a ubiquitous or the next big thing are high. That's one big notion that you have to always carry with you, that and keep in mind that you should not fear of failure for that technology. But when it comes to what other important aspect that you should keep in mind is, one is the community around that technology. When I look at a particular project, and I'll give you a very specific example as well, and maybe many of you would relate to that example. There's this tech called Flutter, which people wanted to incorporate in the organization. For a long period of time, it was a very dormant technology because there was no community around it. But today, with the new updates, with the new things that they are coming up with, Flutter has become quite a massive project. So if you embark on the journey of embracing Flutter today, the risk is very low. But if you have embarked on this journey, say 3 years ago, then the risk was very high. So one of the key thing that you should look at is what is the community around that particular technology on the implementation front. And the second is, and you ask about translation, the second is if there is enough people in your organization who are supportive of it, right? In the sense, you can't put a specific technology into the throat of developers or product managers or designers or data scientists. You have to understand if there is a right kind of feedback and right kind of fertile thought around that tech. So if you have right community, if you're not fearing for if you don't have fear for failure, and if you have people who want to embrace that technology, I think these key things would help you in implementing a new tech in an organization.
Another question I see is that how difficult, or not how difficult, I think from your personal experience, what was the most challenging part in Arogya when you developed the Arogya Setu app?
See, I always told that this was like a mission for a country. So one of the things that we always had in mind is we want to make the country proud by building something which solves for like the scale that we have. So the biggest challenge, and I would not say biggest, there's three challenges that were core to us. One was the scale, the way people embarked on the app was just phenomenal. It was like never seen before. During the month of April, we were the world's 7th largest downloaded app, and we had zero international presence. By only in our country, in the month of April and May, we had become the world's 7th fastest downloading app. And as I said, in 13 days, 50 million downloads. So scale was a big challenge. Reliability was another big challenge because in India, the fragmentation of devices is huge. So building for all of those devices and ensuring that whatever systems we are building are reliable and doing exactly what they're supposed to do. And reliability was paramount also because it was about health. I mean, we can't give a wrong information to a person. There are exceptions that would happen, but it cannot be, you have to be 99.999%. So reliability was another big tech challenge that we solved. And more importantly, security. And a lot of people have spoken about privacy of the app. A lot of people have spoken about security issues for the app, but fortunately, there was nothing which was of any base. So we've been able to, so security was one big area where we focused. We build app in such a way that it is private first, and it basically, you have a control of your data, and whatever is coming onto the backend is secured. There has been many hacking attempts. There has been, there were hackers from like really good known organizations as well. But fortunately, nothing got leaked. So scale, reliability, and security are the three big areas where, or big challenges that we solved at Arogya Setu.
So one of the things that you said is also that technology needs to change 2 to 3 years. And you talked about security. One is from an HR perspective, security is people led. One part of that is people led, but there are other things which are in terms of from technology on information security. How do you think people should be keeping themselves abreast on that?
See, technology or security in technology is again a way in which you develop. There are processes that one must follow in a tech team, and these processes can be a very straightforward review processes. And in large organizations like MakeMyTrip, GoIBibo, and on all, these processes called VAPT process, where you actually simulate security threats on your own systems, and you try to take it through your sort of through a hacking attempts by yourself to ensure that your systems are working. And there are many organizations as well that solves this for you as a SaaS product. So security in an organization, or an information security in an organization, has to be part of the entire process of building a software. And that's what we do at GoIBibo, MakeMyTrip, now in Eka Care, as well as we did it on Arogya Setu. Arogya Setu, it was far too much. We actually ended up inviting many people external to come and hack us, so that we solve for these issues wherever they are. But it has to be part of your development process.
Yeah, because we have a very interesting question here, and a lot of people from the SME sectors are also watching us live. So
Yeah.
some of them have said that most of the time, small organizations adopt technology and they put in their shoes into the in the peer organization. So how do you derive best possible tech-oriented solutions from peers or leaders? Because one size cannot fit them all. And what's your message from the perspective of SMEs who cannot invest as much as their bigger counterparts?
It's a very good question, and the answer to it is, don't try to fit in to a leading organization's shoes. Learn from them. What rather I would say is, why do you build technology? You build technology to solve for a consumer problem. And these consumers can be a B2B consumer or a B2C consumer, and so on and so forth, or your internal consumer. Start from there. If you start from technology, you would start going into a wrong direction. Start from what a consumer wants and how that problem needs to be solved by leveraging a technology that fits you. What happens is, and a lot of times I've seen, and let me take an example of GoIBibo and MakeMyTrip. GoIBibo was more of a late entrant into the whole OTA space. One of the things that we should have done is exactly look at the technology that MakeMyTrip was using, and then start trying to build on top of it. And which is a smart thing, because you would learn from what great companies like MakeMyTrip have done. But we took a different approach. We said that, what is it that you want to do? You want to book a flight ticket. And if you want to book a flight ticket, what is it that you need? You need a flight booking engine. And how that booking engine needs to be built without wasting too much of an effort in creating a lot of extra services around it. And that entire process of thinking consumer first and building technology would give you a better outcome than actually adopting to what the leading organizations are doing. You learn from them. For example, if you learn that there's a specific way in which, or we had learned there's a specific way in which MakeMyTrip connects to the airline partners, we learned from them and we used it. But the problem got called out when we started building our own solution for our customers. So that's how I would do it, rather than looking at the large organizations and peers and then trying to copy it.
Yeah, thanks, Vikalp. I think one last question. So as the name of the session is collectively solving problems of the future. So what are you up to now? What is that you are solving using technology right now?
Great question, and thanks for asking that question. It'll let me express.
Sorry for putting you in a spot, but this is something that I wanted to ask you. That what is that you are now doing to collectively solve problems of the future?
Yeah. So we are like bunch of technologists now, around 15 of us. We are looking at health tech space. Eka Care is the name of the brand that we will come up with. It's a coming soon product right now. What we want to solve is making sure that you engage with your healthcare providers. The patient should engage with their healthcare providers much more effortlessly and digitally. And we feel if we create a digital experience for a doctor patient engagement or a digital experience for a lab patient engagement, we will come up with a better health outcomes for the people around. So the whole idea is very simple. Create digital experiences for patients and their healthcare provider for better health outcomes. For the same, we are building software that are medically aware and are actually being deployed into doctors' clinics, hospitals, labs, and also there will be an interface which will be out of the world interface, if I may say so, for people like us. And whenever we need care, we would use that. That's why the name Eka Care.
Awesome. So here that brings to the end of this session. Thanks, Raj, and thanks, Vikalp, for this
Thank you
wonderful
so much.
session. There's a message for the participants who are watching us live on the FICCI Bike platform. They can now log in into the Zoom platform for the next interactive sessions. The links are there in the agenda as well. You can just click on the agenda, click on the link and get on the Zoom sessions. We take a 15 minutes break here and join at the other side of the break. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Raj, for superbly moderating the session as always. And thank you, Vikal, for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Raj. Bye-bye.
Bye, thanks.
Only we are there, or what?
Are you, Raj? Good afternoon.
I'm saying, is it only two of us are there? So this is one of the breakout rooms. We are there, or what?
Are you, Raj? Good afternoon.
Hello. I'm saying, is it only two of us are there? So this is one of the breakout rooms. We are there, or what?
Are you, Raj? Good afternoon.
Hello. We are there, or what? I'm saying, is it only two of us are there? So this is one of the break. Is it only two of us are there? So this is one of the breakout rooms. We are there, or what?
Are you, Raj?
Only two of us are there. So this is one of the Okay, what is the process? Anything? Are we in a breakout room? Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you, Yuvraj. So we are in a
Okay,
breakout room,
what
right?
is the process? Anything?
Yeah, we are in the overall
Are we in a
session.
breakout room? Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you, Yuvraj. So we are in a
Okay,
breakout room, right?
what is the process? Anything? Seems to be repeat here.
Yeah, I heard this twice. Yuvraj,
Yeah.
we can hear you, but I heard your voice twice.
I don't know why.
Hi.
Hey,
I don't know why is it getting repeated? Why is it coming as a loop? Can you
Yuvraj,
hear
by
me?
any chance you are connected on two devices?
No, I am not. Absolutely not. That's what I was also trying to figure out. But is it better now, Prabhanjan?
We can hear you, Yuvraj, perfectly all right.
It is
Okay, so
playing.
Prabhanjan, can you? Is it better now, Prabhanjan?
We can hear you, Yuvraj, perfectly all right.
It is
Okay,
playing.
so Prabhanjan, can you? Is it better now, Prabhanjan?
Yuvraj, if possible, just log off and log in again.
Wait. I think that let me do something else.
Because my audio is okay?
Yes, Sukrit, I can hear you very well.
Thanks. So I'm not switching into the next device. I'm using this laptop itself.
Okay, great.
I can
Hey,
see.
Vikas, you are one of the moderators for this session.
Yes, Krishnan.
Christian
Hi,
here.
how are you?
Hi, I'm good.
So right now, all of us have joined the main room, and soon it will be divided into 3 rooms, and then those will be the breakout rooms. Right now, all of us are in the common room.
Absolutely. Am I audible, Prab?
Yes, Yuvraj, you're audible.
Hope there's no echo or something like that, nothing, right?
No. Now it's perfectly fine.
Right now, all of us have joined the main room, and soon I think there is one system which is 3 rooms playing the playback sound. Those will be the breakout rooms. Right now, Prab, by any chance, I'm getting some audio indication on
Am I
your
audible?
system.
Prab?
Can you check? Yes, Yuvraj, you're audible. If there is some additional app opened on your system, some browser which is playing back the video.
No, nothing.
No, at the Prab side, not the Yuvraj, not at your end, but Prab end.
The Prabhanjan's audio is off if you look at.
Yeah, I see him as muted.
So right now he's muted, but when he's unmute himself, so then I start getting those. So this is what I observed on the panel.
Yes, you are right. Can you hear me clearly? Am I
Yes.
getting repeated or it's same? It's right.
No, this now it's fine.
I think there was something to do with the Prab's.
So he might
video.
have opened a playback session in a browser, which is creating that playback sound.
Yeah, maybe.
Somehow it's appearing all fine to me. Now, though Prab is not here right now in this connect, I guess he's not connected, right? He's re-login, if I'm not wrong.
He's not here.
Yeah, I don't see him right now in the room.
So who's distributing teams in various participants and different groups?
Yeah, Yuvraj will do that at the back end. And we'll have Vikas, Prab, and Sukrit moderating those breakout rooms.
Let's do that.
Yeah, we just had finished. So 4:15 is our session time. This time is actually a break time because we just finished Vikalp's session.
Okay.
So 4 to 4:15 is the break time that we have given.
So that's why Krishnan was having a break. Hi, Raj.
Hi.
How are you? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well. You know, I know you and Preeti had a sinister plan. I was telling Vinti.
No. I think that we took advantage of you not being in one of the meetings.
That's you volunteered me.
No, I think that first session went off well. I think good questions I saw. Some
Questions were very good.
Questions are very good. I think that the only thing is that you, on that bike platform, you realize that, you don't have a possibility of jumping in and saying something, which is right also from the, construct point of view. But, you can't kill your real self. You like to get into sharing something. IT support is the host now.
I thought, my team at least was very enthusiastic to join this session, especially this facilitated session. They're quite keen to understand from all the facilitators, how can they solve the real problems in their businesses. So I don't know, I think right now your positioning would be like close to God, yeah. All of you. Vinti, we have quite a number of people, right?
Yeah, so it's the break time right now, Raj. We'll start another 5 minutes, so probably some people more will join. So we'll start by 4:15, bang.
Yeah.
For the breakout activity, yeah.
So Vinti, how many participants are we expecting to get divided?
So they were close to 90. Sukrit, there's a static at your end. So there are 90 people who were watching us on the bike platform, and additionally some people watching us on the YouTube live. Yeah, so anytime they will be joining us, but we won't get delayed. We will start another 5 minutes.
Okay. But the breakout will happen only on Zoom. So I believe those who are joining on YouTube and the other platform,
they won't be able to. Yeah, we've made the announcement there at the bike platform. We've asked also people to join. It's just that they're having their own time, break time.
I'm not sure if it's happening only with me, but I see Yuvraj's video frozen. It's not moving.
Yeah, but I can see everyone else's video perfectly okay. Yuvraj dropped out.
And this is the backstage area, right? With 30 of us.
This is a common room, so nothing backstage. So every participant is there.
So Sukrit, the format is that on the bike, on the bike platform, we've been doing keynotes and tete-a-tetes and conversations. For us to experience any kind of session, we are transferring audience to Zoom platform, because on bike we have a limitation of not having a live conversation. So bringing in that personal touch is not possible on the bike platform because of the construct. The pedagogy of the conference requires us to be on the Zoom platform so that people can join in live, ask live questions. Yesterday, in fact, there were so many breakout activities, a lot of polls happening. So all of that can happen on Zoom.
It's nice to connect with Krishnan and Raj.
Likewise.
There are our IT team is informing us that there are still some people at bike, and we have asked them to join in here. But I think in another minute we can start.
And you will be getting them to join whichever breakout activity, various groups, right?
Yeah. So Raj, Vikas, Prab, and Sukrit will be moderating these breakout rooms, and our support will make them the moderators of each breakout room that they will be moderating.
Thanks, Binti.
I think what we can do is we can start the breakout activity now, and then probably when people start joining in, we'll keep pushing them into different breakout rooms.
Yeah.
Raj, is that okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. So you just start whenever we can go live. If we are live already.
Yeah, I think we are live. We are live. We can go live. Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful, everyone. Again, welcome back. All those who are joining in new, a bigger welcome. And definitely the people who've been through us and are inspired and energized with the track today. I'm sure you are finding lots of thought starters, lots of perspectives, and I think that'll carry through this session and definitely through the last session. The way that we've structured the entire track is really think about each of us in our own personal or professional domains. How can technology help us? um, I like the word optimism. In any solution lies optimism. If you solve problems with or without technology, there obviously is hope and a spirit of progress as well. What we have presented in the previous session was really thinking about how and what at a broader scale. But I think let's try to build it in our personal areas. Since it's all about co-creating and collectively solving problems. And I'm sure in each of the areas, in each of your organizations, you have a lot of business problems and maybe the top 2 or top 3 problems that you see. And you will be joining various small group sessions. What I'm excited with is the facilitators who are going to lead the session, a mix of technologists, HR, people practitioners, and actually I would say not even technology. I think it's very stifling. It's their leaders in their own right, specialists, who will challenge you, who will help you build your perspective further. So in the over the next 1 hour or so, they have an interesting track built out for you. Vikas, Prab, and Sukrit, warm welcome. A lot of people are looking forward to the session, and as I said, it's very atypical in any HR session where you kind of join it with innovation and technology. And most practitioners or most people or participants have told me in private that they're looking forward to this session because they want to hear others' perspective as well and have conversations. So I think conversations is what is going to energize them. So look forward to a very energizing and fulfilling session. Vinti, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Raj, for setting up the context. Sukrit will be leading, who's the senior manager with DSSCI. Prabhanjan heads HR at Redbus, and Vikas is an AI expert, and he's CEO and founder of Adhyan Group. So Sukrit will be leading the first breakout rooms where he'll be discussing what are the short-term priorities of business and HR and how technology can be leveraged using tech and how we can use technology to solve those problems. And likewise, Prab to lead the midterm and Vikas to lead the long term. So we'll make these 3 moderators as host. So they can probably join in any one of these breakout rooms and lead the activity. Once the activity is over, it's 16:18 by our watch, and by 16:50, I think we'll close the breakout rooms to feed the input of these breakout activities to the next panel, which is led by Raj, and we have very exciting leaders joining in from the industry. So I would request the IT team to now sort of break the audience into 3 groups and make Vikas, Sukrit, and Prabhanjan moderators of these 3 rooms. Dr. Breja, can you join the breakout room which is assigned to you? Farheen, can you join the breakout room? The device by the name SD, Ritika, Shivmoli, Mahendra, can you all please join the breakout room? Sukrit, which breakout room have you joined? Sukrit, you there?
I think Sukrit is there. Is he? He's not there.
Okay. Raima, can you join the breakout room assigned to you?
Sure, I'll just do that. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Farheen, if you're there in the meeting, can you join the breakout room? Dr. Breja, can you join the breakout room, please? Hi, Preeti. Welcome. The breakout activity is underway.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
I took some time. I was facing some technical challenges.
No problem. So we'll assemble back post the breakout activity at say 10 minutes to 5.
But it'll be this one, Vinti, or it'll be different one?
No, same link. Same link. We'll now host the panel.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm sure the sessions went well.
Yeah, the first one went well. This is the second one, which is the breakout activity. And it's led by 3 moderators who are moderating those breakout activities.
I got logged off. Can somebody please put me back into the meeting room?
Yeah, Sukrit.
I will do it. I got it. I'm just joining.
Okay. You are the co-host now, Sukrit. Okay. Garima has joined. Can you join any one of the breakout rooms? Rakesh Jain, can you please join the breakout room?
Yeah, since I've just joined, I think from the later discussion, I will not have any inputs in the breakout rooms to give Hindi right now.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think welcome back each one of the participants after a very good and engaging breakout activity. We have next 5 to 7 minutes for the breakout room moderators to summarize what have they deduced from their groups and what is their top 2 to 3 things which they would want to share it with the next panel. So we'll start with Sukrit. Sukrit, go ahead and share what have you deduced from your breakout room activity. Over to you.
Thanks, Dimple. So we had a quite engaging session, I would say, and Yuvraj was kind enough to summarize it in the appropriate manner that we need to have business. Yes, am I visible?
Yeah, Sukrit.
Okay. So Yuvraj actually summarized this very well during that session, that we have to have business in the core, and HR and technology are the support systems. They are not the peripheral elements, but they are the strongest support systems. And we had representation from various sectors in that breakout zone. We had people from oil, energy, power background, manufacturing, academia, and few of the things that came up as the findings or the requirements in the short-term mode is the focus on engagement, the focus on skill gap. So it will be the engagement team when it comes to the HR function. It would be the L&D's responsibility to ensure that they get the right skills and do it in a timely manner. And both of them will get support from technology in the new norm. Another critical element that was discussed was about information security, InfoSec. And we did touch upon a few of the developments that are happening in this country when it comes to a bill getting tabled in the parliament, which will have its implications. So overall, probably the 3 points that summarizes this entire discussion would be on how we use technology and the HR fundamentals to ensure that engagement and wellness, employee wellness, is matched as per the requirements. That will focus on employee health, safety, and also allow productivity to increase by ensuring that you actually inculcate the right skills to your employees, and find avenues of getting trainings done, getting those to be monitored well so that the productivity is mapped, and keep an overarching InfoSec umbrella so that information security or any kind of threat mitigation can be in focus. So I would say that's how I would like to summarize this discussion when it comes to the short-term planning, and look forward to hearing from others now.
Thank you, Sukrit. Prab, over to you for the midterm.
Again, very rich discussion, extremely insightful from the participants there. And I think at the outset, when we were defining the entire, definition of short, mid, and long term, right? Krishnan came with a very beautiful insight. He said, gone are the days when we would look at short term, medium term, and long term as time-based, timeline, schedule-based, kind of tenures, right? Today it is about, short term is about, what are your immediate requirements from a business fulfillment standpoint, and how do you, run the, continue the business, right? Business continuity, how do you manage that? Midterm is more about, how do you identify these market adjacencies, right? How does the business identify market adjacencies, and how do you enable, right, those to take shape and, continue to evolve, right? And that's where we, started off, and, we were, kind of brainstorming session, but really some interesting points that came up, Vinti. We had thoughts where, the concept of the translators, right? Vikalp shared in his session. There were points about, how can, as an HR organization, we enable creating this cohort within the organization, and how can technology help there, right? We had, some interesting conversation about, skilling and learning, right, in the midterm period, right? What are those skill and capability gaps that exist today, right, within the organization, right? Apart from all the trainings and L&D activities that are happening, right? To build a capability in the organization, what can we do, and how can technology play a pivotal role there, right? And how should that evolve? We also had some interesting ones in terms of, some real life examples, right? And very rich conversation there in terms of, as HR, organization, we are hearing a lot more about, what are the employees going through in terms of a new hire when they join. The amount of connect and engagement that they don't get today in the virtual world that they used to get earlier, right? Which is creating a lot of that disengagement, right? No amount of, meetings and, virtual inductions are able to solve that problem. So how do we create that platform for them to be enabled, engaged, and then productive, right? Secondly, what are some of the, even today there are organizations which are grappling with, how should policies evolve given the current situation and context? What is it that HR organization do to understand and assess the needs of employees much better? How should that translate into policies? How can that be rolled out quickly in a form, shape, and channel through which employees are able to understand, embrace, and implement that better for themselves, right? Some very, very interesting concepts of technology play there. Then we had some, points about, the generations, right? And we've all, heard about, this multiple generations coming together, and, some good insights from banking sectors and other sectors, right? That, we have, people from multiple generations coming and working together now. In a real life, in person, things were slightly easier, but in a remote world, it is extremely difficult for those generations to come up. How do we drive technology adoption, right? For those cohorts where it is not as easy for them, right? Because we continue to think about the ones that are privileged, right? Which have access to laptops and phones and everything else. But what about the generations which do not have access to that, right? And how could we bring them into the, into the digital, landscape, right? And have everybody collaborate together. Then we've had some interesting points on how HR as a function now should, an interesting, point there about, how the generalist role is coming to an extinct in real terms, right? But it requires more specialization for an HR professional to be able to provide the meaningful insights, recommendations, and solutions, for some of the employees' needs. So some really interesting thoughts that came out there, Vinti. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Prab. And finally, Vikas, live to you for quickly summarizing, and I think in the next 3 minutes, what was the outcome? I'm sure it is an unfair ask because we are just short of time now, but we'll have to manage and squeeze the next 3 minutes, please. Over to you.
Yeah, sure. So thanks everyone who participated in the long-term session. And we defined a new definition of AI. So it's not just artificial intelligence, it's more about agility and innovation. And some of you might see people have renamed their name because we played a game and somebody are having a different name. So thanks for people who joined. Quickly, we covered different aspects of it. For example, 3D printing to inclusive nature of the organization. There are many inputs regarding that, how to have a strong data science being implemented in a strategic manner and have the AI and ML solution based out on those data strategic thing. HR people are looking for customized HR solutions. For example, how we can work with remote people, how to measure the performance of the people who are working remotely, how to hire the talent remotely, and can the AI be an enabler in that space? And then L&D people talking about that, how to create the personal touch, how we can have that. So among all the different aspects, let me quickly summarize the 3 things that we want the next panel discussion to think about and cover it. First, definition of long term itself is changing very fast. So there are people who are saying that long term is 1 year, then somebody 2 years. No, long term for me is 5 years. So how do we really define long term? And probably by next year, this same time, this conference, we might have long term as 6 months, right? So how technology can enable us to have that kind of agility in our environment? That's one. Second, when we are talking about that, majority of the solutions are already available. Companies will say that, okay, we have this HR solution which people are asking for. Having said that, there have been concerned that these are so generic solutions that they are not customized for their industry. So for example, they are serving only 60 to 70% of the requirement, not the 90% of the requirement. So how to create those customized solutions which are AI enabled and smart solution for all these things? That's the second ask. And third and most interesting ask is, is our organization ready to work with humanoids? What if a humanoid is sitting in our office after a few years? It may not happen after 2 years, but definitely after 10 years. Are we ready for that? Are we looking for a reservation for human in a humanoid major organization? If some company choose to hire 100 humanoids, do we want a reservation? No, at least you should have 10 humans in your organization. So are we ready to work in a humanoid oriented organization? So these are 3 asks. I'll put it in the chat box too. Thanks, Vinti, and thanks everyone for being participative. So helpful. Yeah, bye.
Thank you, Vikas. I think humanoid is something that we need to chat offline. That seems really interesting and intriguing. So now we come on to the final leg of the day today, which is the panel discussion on the emergent themes and a few pointers that we have discussed with the panel earlier. So it's a privilege to call upon Mr. Sajid Shivanandan, who's the MD and business head for GPay, Mr. Raghavan Iyer, who's the senior MD for Accenture Technology. We have Deepak, who was also participating in one of these breakout rooms. So thank you, Deepak, for that. Deepak is an executive director at Indian Oil Corporation Limited. And we have Subrat Mohanty, who's the group executive for banking operations and transformation at Axis Bank. This panel is going to be led by Raj. So thank you, Raj, for being there and moderating the panels. Over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, panelists. And first of all, good evening to all the, thank you to all the co-hosts, Prab, Vikas, Sukrit. You did a fantastic job and made my job easier. So for the benefit of the panel and the participants who've been through the sessions through the last 2.5 hours, the way that we constructed the dialogue was really to look at what are the problems, how can technology help out. And Vikas started off the conversation, which was then taken off by various participants, and they collectively co-created some insights in short term, medium term, and long term. And I have the panelists today, if we can have the videos on, so it'll just help us put a name to the face as well. Sajid, Deepak, Raghavan, and Subrat.
You able to see me?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Wonderful.
Okay, I'm not a chair. It's not yet.
Okay, it took 30 seconds. So that just, let's all get us into a conversation mode. Deepak, you there? If you can just get your video on, would be useful.
Yes, I'm there. Video is on. You just have
yes,
to
Deepak, thank you. Sajid. Okay.
Yeah, I'm here, Rajkamal. Nice.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Wonderful. So since I called you last, now maybe it's your turn because you were last to put your video on. The 2-3 things I heard through the day was, one is when Vikas started off talking about, he said, and it's an often heard quote, that technology is something that ensures that scarcity turns to abundance. And that's how we need to look at problems as well, and in terms of reducing friction. But the other insight I really got from the previous session also was, what are the problems that we are running? So they said, the organizations are all grappling with 3 kinds of problems. One is run the organization. Second is to change the organization, broadly speaking. And third is make the organization. And all of us are in various stages. And sometimes we've got to kind of balance it out. Third dimension that was given is when you're looking at problems, you need to take out the time horizon, essentially. Just don't have short term, long term, medium term. Maybe that also is redundant, and maybe I will explore that facet a little later. But from your perspective, and if I were to draw you in, how do you look at problems in the organization, and just connecting the scarcity to abundance to time horizon? Is there some kind of framework, especially from your experience perspective? You have looked at solutions at scale, solving at scale. How do you look at first identify the problem and how do you go about solving things at scale? Very broad question, but I hope you kind of get the context.
Yeah, no, and thank you once again, Rajkamal, for having me on this panel. And delighted to be here. It's an honor to be here. I think the question is very broad, and the reality is that I don't think there's any one approach that tends to fit, the multitude of problems that that companies face. I would say, to the point that you just made around run, change, make, the reality is even very mature companies, if they don't wish to be rendered irrelevant, should probably be in that mode, at all times, but just at different, adopt different muscles at different times, different products, etc. I mean, sometimes it's about running the business, sometimes it's about making something new, sometimes it's about changing, the old ways. And I think from that perspective, I would argue that that's something all companies need to think about. In terms of solving problems at scale, the reality is, look, as I began, there's just no one approach that fits everything that a company is faced with. But technology does help address problems at scale. And by the way, if you're facing problems at scale, it's a good problem to have, because if you've hit scale, then that means the company is growing and you're doing well, and that's actually a good place to start from. But I would say that underpinning any and all technology, because look, technology is only going to get you so far. I genuinely believe that it's very critical to kind of underpinning all of this is people, right? And so if there are ways that, the intersection of technology and people actually delivers the right outcomes. Now, that finding that intersection is very hard. Companies can more often than not swing any which way to the extreme. And then when you do that, you actually don't get the benefits of either technology nor people, right? And so finding that intersection is an incredibly hard, incredibly complex challenge that companies of all sizes and kinds face. And not just, by the way, every company I think today is a tech company, right? Like, I mean, if you'll have tech in different parts of your organization, independent of what kind of a company you're in. So this isn't really about technology solving problems, but it's about finding the right intersection between technology and people so that you can really address the problems that a company faces. And there'll be different problems depending on what stage you're at, what life cycle, and so on.
The useful perspective, you again talked about intersection, and that I think is the core of your insight. Talking about another intersection which got highlighted through the various sessions was intersection between technology and business. And that came repeatedly, I think, in the previous session also. It was about what is really core. Is business the core, or customer the core, or technology leading the business? So drawing Deepak in, Deepak, the question for you is, how should we what are the, collaboration or communication channels that need to be looked at? Who leads who? How do we kind of extend the collaboration between, technology and business? And here, I guess it's, obviously the emphasis on culture is important. Culture of curiosity is important. Trying to change things are important. Assuming all of those are there, how do you kind of foster collaboration, especially in organizations which are not primarily technology first, are trying to get on the bandwagon of technology?
Thanks for this opportunity. Okay, I'll answer this question this way. I'll just take an example of my own corporation. There was a time when there was a big divide between the technology and business. Today it is not. Why? Because we find business is changing very, very rapidly in oil and gas companies. And so is the technology also. And everybody is basically fighting for the survival, whether it is a business or a technology or an individual in the corporation. Everybody wants to prove that he is the best, right? So whether it is a business requirement or a technology showcase, they come to each other. But what are the means? I will just tell you very, very shortly onto that. So number 2 point is the business and the IT strategies. If you talk of internal context, if I talk to you about, they are getting co-created, right? They are getting co-created. Earlier, we basically used to work for the organization. Now we are working with the organization. So that's a new culture which has come in the last 2 years in this organization with the advent of this digitalization tools which has come to the market, right? This is what is happening. I'll just quote some examples of innovations where the business says this is what is required, how the technology pitch in. Let's look at the different flavors. The COVID time, we have got a 35,000 strong internal force sitting at home, except the people who were at the locations, right? And the doctors are not available in the hospitals. They are not available in the hospitals. So how to handle these emergencies actually? So this question was put up in one of the VCs. Somebody gave this particular, I mean, there's a forum. So somebody picked up that question there. It's very easy. I mean, if my wife is down with fever or what, where to go on to that, whether it is COVID or not. Within 7 days, the technology, they came pitching and we developed our own telemedicine app. I think which is the best in the country today. Best in the country. Even the best of the hospitals in the country, they don't have the telemedicine app what Indian Oil is having today, right? What we did, we have got all doctors in the refineries, right? We have got so many doctors who are on our panel, entire corporation, and there are so many doctors who are retired also. So we made a pool of those doctors and we brought them into our telemedicine app. So this COVID time is getting over now. The point here is this particular habit of telemedicine is still not gone. People are still habitual for telemedicine. So the point is how to reimburse the money of the medicine now. So this is another question. So what we have done is we have interfaced it with our SAP ERP system now. So whatever the doctor is prescribing on the telemedicine app, you go to the medicine shop and buy it, and then you can claim it. So basically we have given some ID numbers and those kind of integration pieces also happening there. So only the business requirement was, I want to keep my HR people for the wellness. What should I do? So this is what the technology piece came. Look at the example LPG booking today. I don't know. I think I'd be very happy if everybody is an Indian customer for LPG, right? So earlier was the days when LPG used to get booked through IVRS system, or you have to go personally to the distributor. See, what is the customer demanding now? You are going to the FMCG companies and so many things you are doing. Now we are booking a gas through WhatsApp. We are booking a gas through Amazon, right? You just give a missed call and the gas will come to your house. This is what, I mean, can you expect this oil and gas companies doing like this? So this is what the business is asking for. Why? Because the business says, I have a throat cut competition. I want to give a new customer experiences to other people. So this is what is happening. I mean, just for the very wonderful example, I tell you, we did a very, the younger generation, you know, when the people join our corporation, so we do a lot of conferences for them. So in one of the youngsters, you know, what he told me very surprisingly, I was also participating. He put a question to me. Sir, technology is going very fast. Can you give me a switch at my house? If I press that switch, my gas gets booked. Right? Now you look at, this is the business requirement. He says my business requirement is I just want to press a switch and my gas shall get booked. Now I am working in the backward direction. If he presses the switch, I should have a load bearing sensor under my LPG cylinder. When it is getting empty at a threshold value, there should be one SIM card into my switch. It should talk to my locality or my colony, Airtel or whosoever it is there. Then it should go to the cloud. Then it should come to my secondary distribution CRM system, and the gas should work and all the reverse kind of things. So very, very innovative now thoughts are coming to the people. Oil and gas company, earlier it was a very conventional oil and gas company, you know. One of the very good examples now, let's talk of blockchain. People talk of blockchain. We supply lubes. Now, basically, the people who consume lubes is basically the shop owners. If you go for your auto repair and all, you will find there are a lot of shops are there, auto shops are there. So they sell in the bazaar. The lubes is sell to the bazaar. Now, how a customer knows the lube which is selling to me of Indian Oil, whether it's a genuine lube or not. So we are tracking and tracing our entire lube supply from my plant to the bazaar through a blockchain technology. So this is how the business is basically coming. So many wonderful examples I can give you. Now look at the Google GPS or whatsoever the GPS. We have got 1,000 kilometers of pipeline, and we have got some line patrolmen who 24/7 they monitor these pipelines. How do we monitor which particular person has reached where and how many kilometers, or is he sleeping at home, or he's not traveling at all? Right? So we have developed an application which is directly talking to the satellite GPS system, and I am having a minute-to-minute information. So this is how the technology and business, they are working together. Now let's come to the part, how do we get this divide narrowed down? The most important part I find today is the communication, right? Now communication is not telling, it's not a very simple telling. What the board of directors, the chairman has adopted our present, the storytelling, right? He starts telling the story. So what he does is he puts his perspective to the group of people, which is a layer 2 people, like we call executive directors or 150 executive directors. He puts in a storytelling, look, this is where I want to take the organization. For example, now Tesla is coming through your alternate energy, these all electric cars and coming and all, and I want to tap this particular facility of battery swapping and all this is what we can do. Now the second thread they pick up, I am a technology person, somebody is a business person, somebody is handling alternate energy, somebody is handling retail business. Everybody picks up the thread from there and we start working differently. And then through some forum, we come together, right? This is what we do in a communication. We have got a portal called MySpace portal. Now this MySpace portal, all business people, right from my entry level officer to the high level officers, they put their business problem into that portal, which is a very nice portal. We've got MySpace portal, and there are 2 people who are monitoring these portals. If it's a technology issue, this is being referred to me. If it's something business problem, it is referred to them. And within 5 days, I have to refer back to them. Yes, this is possible or not possible. If possible, I will take so much time. Right, and this is being monitored at a very, very high level kind of. This is how I am getting the inputs from the business, and I put my technology perspective onto that. Third thing is how to tell the business what technology can do for you. So it's both ways. What business is doing outside and what technology can do. It's both ways. I also need some input, and business also needs some input from that. So what we do is basically we have got some sister concerns like Bharat Petroleum, Hindustan Petroleum, Shell, Chevron, and all. We bring the industry use cases. When any industry use case comes to me, I make it sure that my business also participates into the industry use cases, and can we pick up the thread out of that? This is how do we work onto that, correct? But a very good example is you have got a good communication and call. See, Teams is also one of the very good software people are using it. Some of the companies I have found they are using Slack also. But the issue is you are doing a lot of collaboration, you are using a lot of communication. How to measure the efficiency of this collaboration and this thing? Just about 15 days back, I came to know IBM has developed one tool, they call it VOTE, V-O-T-E. So this particular tool, this scans all your medias and tells you the efficiency, how nicely you have collaborated and how nicely you have communicated. So this is where the technology intervention comes. A very good new thing which I have done in Indian Oil with the help of my board is now we are transferring, we are doing interdiscipline transfer. After 4 years of working in my technology piece, I am transferring those trained people, whether it is SAP or whether it is CRM, I am transferring them to business, and in turn, I am taking business people into my department. In this process, about 150 people are roaming here and there. So what happens is if a technology person is already sitting with the business, the first layer of work is already doing with them. Then the second problem comes to me. So these are some of the good things, which we are doing in Indian Oil, and it's really paying us good result to that.
So Deepak, I must tell you that through storytelling, you've given all not only that. Here I am dreaming that tomorrow I will have the switch on my gas cylinder and it will just come in.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. So Raghavan, just to contrast it completely, and here was a brilliant example of how an oil company, traditional conventional oil company, is transforming and building adjacency and developing solutions. And I wouldn't have thought about it. Personally, if you'd asked me, I wouldn't have thought about it. That's possible. And he also made an interesting point on, in inducting technology-oriented people into business. And that's a fantastic way of obviously creating capacity as well. So learning came as not only short, medium term, and even a long-term issue, skilling. Obviously, it's a real issue. And earlier in the day, Vikalp also talked about the fact that, a large section of the population in any organization will be translators, either users or people who translate and use the technology. And that population has to be upskilled. Maybe technology guys are the ones that you will continually either buy talent or build for certain skill sets. How do you see this dilemma or conundrum kind of changing? Is that going to change? First of all, or is that a tall ask?
No, I think it's first of all, the fantastic pitch by Mr. Deepak, and great to see how the industry is transforming. And as part of that, one of the things I mentioned to the previous group as well is Accenture comes out with a vision called the technology vision. And every year it publishes based on last several years of trends. And this year's headline, which just got published about a month ago, is Leaders Wanted, Masters of Change at a Moment of Truth. That's the headline. And it is made up of 5 key themes. First is stack strategically, which means build your applications in a way where you can continue to collaborate across the ecosystem, like Mr. Deepak was talking about. The second is a mirrored world. So I can relate it back into the cylinder. You can have an IoT device in your cylinder and automatically it goes up to the cloud. Third is very important, I, the technologist, which is really the democratization of technology. And it's very refreshing to see when the business is going into the IT and the IT is going into the business, the blur between the two is really going away. And a lot of low code, no code type setup can be there where anybody can learn this with minimal click points. And hence, I think the richness of the solutions can come, the innovation can come at a very rapid pace because the business folks know what needs to get working. And they can build a lot of these things themselves. And that, I think, more and more, I think this is going to happen. So in Accenture, we have something called as the technology quotient, where every part of Accenture goes through across these 5 or 6 large technology areas like blockchain or artificial intelligence. And it's very simple, easy to understand. Everybody, right from the CEO down to our 500,000th organization person has to go through this technology quotient. And the thinking is democratization of technology, including all our HR folks. Yeah. So that's very, very important as well. Fourth is anywhere, everywhere. So bring your own environment. And we've all seen at least 3 billion people starting to work from home, adopting technology in a completely different way. And the world has not shut down. Things are still working as effectively as before or even better in some cases. And then the last one is from me to we, which is essentially saying, how do you collaborate using a blockchain system? How do the systems talk to each other, etc. And this technology vision that was written very recently isn't something for the future. I think it is already happening from what we are hearing the examples and the moment of change is here. Organizations are rapidly adopting this sort of a fast-paced change and the agility for them to change or perish.
No, so if I were to just push this point a little further, so do you continually build for or continue to buy? Because that's the challenge really most organizations face. You know, Deepak is in a happy phase. Most people kind of grow there, you know, but a lot of the tech talent seems to face this issue of, continued obsolescence. Yeah.
No, I think there is a combination of both. There is no one answer, right? You have to build from within, at least for the organizations like us, we have to continue to build from within, but also to buy and innovate with the open innovation ecosystem. Take the help of, we can't build everything on our own. We can't innovate everything on our own. And the help that we take with the Open Innovation Network and the startup ecosystem, you would be amazed at the amount of startups that are booming in India around recruiting, around experience management, around mental wellness. So we've actually partnered with a startup called Visa that we have rolled out globally. It's an Indian startup for mental wellness that's been rolled out globally because of the pandemic. This was a big issue and most organizations are facing that. So it's a combination of build versus buy. We would not want to do one or the other.
Yeah. So Subrat, if I can just talk about, so Raghavan gave his pitch. Deepak obviously had an Indian oil kind of morphing and becoming more technology oriented and innovating differently. So one of the thoughts that we've heard consistently and also today is technology or automation will kind of eliminate the routine work. And since it's an HR conference, I just wanted to get the human aspect also. Being human is going to be the true differentiator, especially in banking and service industry. And, Axis Bank's tagline is also something like Dil Se Open. And it's really a human face that you've kind of put out there. So if you were to drive this change agenda, and Raghavan said technology and business, those lines are blurring and everybody has a technology quotient. How do you build for human quotient as well? And what is the impact on structure, roles, especially if you're driving that?
So it's wonderful to be here and great to hear all the various perspectives and the extent of automation and the blurring of lines between business and technology that's happening across so many sectors. You raise a very important point. What will humans do if this is everything? That's how the world is going to look like. And I'm reminded of this. There was an American scholar of organization structures, Warren Bennis, and almost 100 years back he had written that, and maybe half jokingly, I'm quite certain half jokingly, that the future organization will have everything automated, and it will have only two employees, a man and a dog. The job of the dog is to keep the man away from tinkering anything in the automation that's happening. And the job of the man is to feed the dog. So my view is maybe there is still some time before we get there, and there is more use to man than just to be there to feed the dog. And why do I say that? That's because I think we've all sort of reached a conclusion, even during the pandemic. As much as we have used collaboration tools and we've used the ability to work from home, and we've done it all very well, the element that really has brought us together is not so much the technology, but the enabling function of the technology to have all of us collaborate remotely and work together and pretty much replicate the real world in a virtual kind of a medium. And, as we have discovered, the virtual medium allows the human element to further shine. Earlier you could only, have a meeting that could be contained in a certain conference room and the size of the conference room, and you spend 15 minutes trying to figure out, how to get the meeting going because of various constraints that you had around logistics. But technology has enabled us to, seamlessly have conversations with people all over the world and, have them even better. There were world-class, music teachers sitting at their homes and only training people in and around their neighborhood. Today they train people all over the world. So in that sense, the view is that technology will serve humans to make sure that the potential that we have will, enhance 100x and not replace it. And in that sense, together, technology and the humans will possibly unleash an era of creativity and innovation that, is something that we would not have seen or haven't seen if we were to continue doing things the way we were doing in the past. And that sort of brings me to that old, quote of Einstein that which sort of puts all of these things into perspective, that a machine can do the work of 1,000 ordinary men or women, as the case might be. But 1,000 machines cannot do the work of an extraordinary man or woman. And I think that is the sense of perspective that we need to have. And at the bank where I work, this comes across, almost on an everyday basis. Firstly, the truth is a country like India lives in 3 different centuries. India is a $3 trillion economy, and I can safely categorize the 3 trillion into categories of 1 trillion each, where the first trillion looks like a middle income, country like Mexico. The middle trillion looks like a, country like Philippines, and the third trillion is very different. It's, to be sometimes a bit, I would say, despondent about the third India that almost resembles sub-Saharan Africa. And all 3 India needs to be served. And all 3 India needs to be served differently because they have very different starting points. And there are human elements to touching the third India and even the second India, which needs to be done. And, we can't create a divide, which was earlier just an income divide. And we can't replace it with a digital divide, where the haves and have-nots are on the basis of, their ability to both use as well as leverage digital capabilities. And I'm sure all of us are working to bridge that divide, but insofar as it will take us time to bridge the divide, I think there is a lot that the human element can do to bring them up, get the divide bridged, and make sure that they also get access to services and products that the first and maybe large parts of second India are getting.
You know, I was very optimistic, and now you kind of got me to the reality, the brass tacks, saying that there is still an India which needs to kind of work through. And that's, you know, and I go back to Sachit, and he says, if there are problems, that's good, especially problems are scaled, are good problems to solve for. So coming back to the brass tacks, you know, and maybe there are two questions, Sajid, I'll talk to you. One is, any change agenda? And I don't know, I think these days everybody said change is, you know, part of running the business. Nobody talks about transformation agenda, innovation. Maybe they are, you know, they are cliched words. But still, in any challenging status quo agenda, there always exists a tussle and friction. One is letting go of the space, whatever the status quo is. There exists that, and adopting a newer space. Especially in technology, we've seen in organizations, whenever something, you know, processes get re-engineered or changed or so on and so forth, adoption of technologies, adoption of anything new seems to be a challenge. At the same time, you know, and all of us know, and we were talking about it in the earlier session, that designers apparently, that you've got, you know, if there are tripod to the entire change agenda or technology agenda that you're trying to spearhead, one is being designers, the second leg being technology, and third is being third we assume is business. In this space, designers need to look at their designs every 2 to 3 months. Software needs to be kind of revisited every 2 to 3 years because of the obsolescence, and hardware needs to be changed every 5 to 6 years. If all of that is, you know, is part of the stack that's continually going for change, there exists that challenge of maintaining continuity while being on this change pedestal. So I'm just trying to wonder, from a human aspect as well, how do you kind of balance it out, especially impact on people, and how do you prepare people for this kind of continuous change mandate or path, if you will?
Yeah, it's Rajkumar, it is a very complex question. It's also a very strategic question that we grapple with, you know, all the time. And I would say this, right? Like, I think humans, as all of us, we struggle with change. You know, we are resistant to change because change is, by very definition, uncertain, right? And so there is this constant tension between progress and then being able to accept change. It's just like, you know, it's very, very hard. Obsolescence, I would contend, though, is a very, very strong word, right? I prefer almost evolution, if you will, right? Because things just like evolve. The reality is the wheel is still what it was when it was first made, but it's just like got a lot more bells and whistles now. I mean, there are computers that operate the wheel, for instance, which is not the case when it was made, but the wheel is still the wheel. So, you know, these things evolve as opposed to becoming kind of obsolete in a way. And I generally think that in terms of how you want to take organizations along, I think you touched upon it actually very much in your question. It's incredibly critical for people to understand why this change happens, why the evolution is required, right? Because as they say, look, if you are not evolving, if you're not innovating, then almost by definition, over a period of time, you'll become irrelevant, right? And that's how actually companies disappear, careers disappear, people sort of, you know, struggle. And one of the things I would argue is that never waste a good crisis, right? Is kind of like the old norm. And whilst, of course, like if for every change you have to invoke crisis, then by definition, it's not crisis anymore. It's just like a, you know, normal state of mind, which is then no fun. But I think if there are some burning platforms, if there are, you know, certain issues or certain, you know, a strategy that becomes like a platform that is like this opportunity to rally, the company around, to rally people around, then sort of taking that through is, I would argue, one of the best ways possible for not only change to happen, but change to stick. Because, look, it's easy, if you're a CEO or anything, it could be argued that it's relatively easy to force some change. But the best change is the one that sticks. And for that to really happen, people have to almost embrace it. It has to, it has to come from within. And the only way that happens is if people know that, hey, here's a clear and present danger or opportunity or anything, call it what you will, but it's a crisis of a kind. And if you get behind it, then yes, there are significant opportunities there to be realized. And that's the way, I'd say companies would do well to follow to succeed, in this change management process.
Why do we fail there? If it is so, it's seemingly simple, it's commonsensical, but often we fail.
No, I made it sound very simple because it's easy for me to talk about these things. So all different ball game doing it, right? And by the way, the degree of difficulty increases exponentially with literally every few people you add. As the Dunbar number. I mean, he was a psychologist, right? Like, so the Dunbar number for like a group to actually know one another at a reasonably personal way is 150 only. Like, I mean, all our organizations, like Indian Oil and all, how do you drive change in organizations that are 150,000, right? So this is by no means a trivial task. But like I said, I think if there are ways that it is not only just top down, but also bottom up, because you're united by this crisis, then that's when it really starts to stick. Not all change processes will succeed. Most may likely fail. You said that it's hard to embrace technological change. That more than anything else, because you're kind of used to one way. Look, if you used email one way, how the hell are you going to switch to a whole new email? All these things are transformational things, as you said. But if it's transformation for the sake of transformation, look, you're bound to fail. But if it's transformation for the sake of an opportunity or to fight a crisis, then yes, that's when it sticks.
Oh, wonderful. So you talk about the fact that people need to be involved, and the why has to be explained, and it is essentially about people, right? So Deepak, if you can just draw in, and I'm looking forward to many more stories also now. So I don't know whether in IOS, Indian Oil, you face this challenge, but there was also this question that was asked earlier, whether we need to have generalists or specialists or both, especially in the newer world. But one thing organizations grapple, to Raghavan's point, when you buy and build, yeah, we need to do both. It's the genius of the and, but that's the difficult part, right? There is a supply problem. The kind of technologies that are evolving, especially in this space, they keep on evolving, and obviously the talent pool is scarce. Rising attrition for most of the organization. Maybe you can talk about how have you solved for it. But from your perspective, even generically, and I heard about engagement as a problem to be solved for in most organizations, to the point that Sajid was mentioning, at any level, any of us, each of us can only know 100, 150 people personally, just to kind of be truly engaged. How do you kind of cascade that process in your setup?
In this digital world, this war for talent, it is going to be more intense day by day, right? That's a very well written kind of a thing, right? And you are going to have a huge skills gaps in each organization, whether it is Indian Oil or whether it is a total IT organization kind of a thing like Infosys or Accenture or everybody's. Why? Because we are changing ourselves, the way we work. We need those very different kind of skills. The one very thing which is coming very particularly in Indian Oil is we are becoming from a project focus to product focus. I mean, it totally requires a different kind of a skill gap actually. I mean, it's a skill kind of a thing. I'll just quote one sentence. Yesterday I was just seeing the card of my daughter, who is running basically a startup in health care, wellness, and this thing. Her designation is chief of everything. So I said, she's the CEO of the company. I said, what is this chief of everything? I mean, I never heard about it. It says I handle security also, I handle my customer also. That's why I've written a designation called chief of everything. In our organization, we never heard of chief digital officer, the chief data privacy officer, chief data officer, all those kind of new roles in the organization are coming. And in Indian Oil, we are we are only used to a very general kind of things, senior manager, chief manager, LPG, retail, those kind of things are there. When this IT and data privacy and all those kind of things, basically everybody is concerned with it. Whether any business, you have to have those kind of things. So we are not able to get those kind of skills here, how to create, how to bring into the system. Now, I think I was in one of the breakout session when Vikas was there, people were talking about agility, right? And once you talk of agility, we talk about agile development also. Once you talk of agile development, there's a very specialized role, we call it Scrum Masters, right? Scrum Masters. These are the people basically who drive this agility, drive the development kind of a thing. Now, we require in the corporation, Indian Oil, but can I really create this kind of a skill or a designation here? So a lot of issues come while adopting the new culture. We are able to do it, but from the HR perspective, we are not able to bring those roles into the organization. We are struggling to do that. Second thing is, when this millennial comes, they don't like the hierarchy actually. They just want to do one-to-one kind of a talk actually. Everybody wants to report to me. He says, please eliminate the entire chain from them. Indian Oil doesn't function that way. I mean, if I am very good, I will talk to an entry-level officer, but a lot of issues come into that. And another gap which is coming is the traditional teams versus the digital teams. The people who have upskilled, who have reskilled themselves into the digital technologies, they are visible in a different manner in the organization. The people who are traditional, they don't get that kind of the time is coming, they're not getting that kind of a respect in the organization. So this is also one of the factors which is coming into between. And another thing which I have noticed is the reskilling. Why reskilling is required when an officer joins the corporation and you don't reskill her or him, right? What they start comparing themselves with their colleagues who have joined some pure IT organization or other organizations. When they see their colleagues are doing so much in their company, they have learned so much and all, then this attrition kind of a thing starts, they start leaving the companies and all. So it becomes very difficult. The moment they join the corporation, within 3 years, you have to really upgrade themselves, their skill levels. And it's a beneficial also, because you have to really, look for the organization work also. Now comes a good story here. You are talking about attrition. You are talking about how to bring the people in the organization. Quora.com is a very good example, right? You just go to Quora.com and you say Indian Oil. Very good people write very nicely there. I joined Indian Oil Corporation and my friend joined ONGC. Can somebody tell me which company is better? Right? And people very nicely they are putting their comments. ONGC ye hota hai, BHEL ye hota hai, Infosys mein ye hota hai, TCS mein ye hota hai, Indian Oil mein ye hota hai. These are all comments which are given at the time of a recruitment, because when the campus starts throwing the people to the industry in May and June, so these happens in the 3 months, July, August, September, this all thing happens. Then a year goes away, right? 1 year happens. Again, Quora count starts. They say, I am in Indian Oil. I have been doing this. Can you tell me how it is happening in the other companies? Then the other friends, they also start reacting. If you go to Google, they give you girlfriend allowance, boyfriend allowance, so many things, people start talking about it. These kind of allowances are there. So many things people talk of how good is my company and all. The point here is what technology can do it. We have got very wonderful tools today. We have used them. Sentimental analytics, text analytics, web scraper. You just put these tools behind Quora.com. You will come to know who is going to remain in your organization, who is going to leave your organization. So this is how the technology is basically going towards it. Now, if you talk of HR cycle, I was just, because I'm not a pure HR person, but I was just looking at Indian Oil. There are 4 SCM processes which comes to my mind. Plan to source, right? You do a planning and then you start sourcing them, acquiring to their onboarding and their performance, and then how do you reward them, and then assessment to their development. These are all 4 processes. Every sub process basically falls into these 4 categories. If you talk of every organization, I think by and large, everybody has used some or other IT tool, right? Whether it is an ERP solution, whether it is a cloud offering, or whether it is a customized solution for everybody is using for both. The point here is the employee sentiment. Those things they are not captured here. So what we have done is a new thing we have started in the organization, going to start gamification. I think you must have heard about this gamification. Now we have started developing this gamification to find it out how to find out to make the employee more productive and loyal to the corporation. These are basically they are not the games actually, but they are like the games in a non-conventional manner. So these gamification concept which we are bringing into that. Crowdsourcing is another way which we are starting doing it. And
essentially, Deepakji, you're also saying you're also adopting and adapting to the changing times and absolutely inspiring us. How
it's working. We can show. It's working in the organization. For example, the voice of the employee, every week or month or yearly, we are doing some surveys kind of a thing by using our blogs or by other things. And then we're using analytics tool onto that. Now, in the case 3 also, when I was sitting in a breakout session, somebody was talking about analytics and all those things. So predictive analytics to ultimately data is an asset. Everything, all these new technologies, they work on the data. So I was sharing with the person there, like, who is going to leave your organization, or what kind of roles you want in the organization, which is getting empty here, what roles to be filled. Today, you have got very nice statistical model. If you have a correct data, a big data with you, big data means you have got a 5 to 6, 7, 8 data. The clean data is available to you. You can do any statistical model. There are not many. There are about 8 or 9 models, statistical model there, and you can do any kind of a predictive analytics like this. You'll be very, very surprised. We are in Indian Oil. You'll really laugh on me. You will be really surprised. We are attempting an analytics tool to determine the price of a crude in the coming months, so that I can plan my procurement during that month. So it's a very, very, if this is so easy, everybody will do it. Why they will buy right now? Because even a 0.5 cent of saving on the crude, it gives me crores of rupees it saves to me. But yes, we are attempting to it. And who are the people? They are all our people. They are my international trade people who have been reskilled into the digital technology. You will be very surprised to know about 100 chartered.
I have to just also, sorry to pause you. I know there are so many stories. I'd also have to draw in other members, but I think you have triggered 2-3 questions. One is the chief of everything question. That employees today want to be chief of everything, right?
Yes,
they want to have, they want to be known as multi-skilled generalists, if you will.
Yes, not prototype. Yes.
Yeah, not being templatized, right? The second thing that you talked about is they are obviously very connected, and looking at data and social media networks, and the advocacy will come from the organization from anywhere. So Raghavan, you are in this area, and you led teams and you're driving innovation. How do you see, what is the value proposition for talent increasingly? What motivates them? What energizes them? Ultimately, I think Deepakji said it's about people. It is really about the people, and how do you kind of engage them, and the culture that you set up.
I think it's a very interesting question, because in the post-COVID world, we are just in the process of even redefining the EVP for our employees. And the broad thinking is that at least the new generation really get attracted to a sense of purpose. It's very important to show them a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging, very, very essential. And the post-COVID world won't help that, because you have thousands of employees who are joining organizations but never have actually visited a facility. So how do you build this sense of belonging in a remote world? Are you tapping into their true human ingenuity? Are you tapping into their innovation skills, and are you providing them paths that they can demonstrate that innovation? Are you leveraging their true self, or making them bring their best self to work every day?
Can I request people to just mute themselves? Sorry. I think it's also the peril of this digital conferences.
Yes.
I think, Binti, can you check?
I am just checking, Rajan, just checking.
multitasking is also some of the things that I think we are grappling with. Yes, go ahead, Raghav.
Yeah, so making sure that we are able to tap into their best self at work. And that includes the continuous learning programs, the flat world of learning. Everybody from the top to bottom need to continuously be learning. And then finally, in the post-COVID world, people will expect flexibility at the core. Okay, there is not going to be one world where everybody comes back to the office. It's going to be people have gotten used to this flexible working culture, and that opens up a very new set of opportunities, whether to tap into tier 2 cities, whether to tap into a boundaryless organization that can help exist. And so that taps into a lot of talent. But to answer your question, if there is one thing I would pick a sense of purpose.
So sense of purpose, I guess, actually, it's been a uniform thread from Sajid to Deepak to even Subrat talked about it earlier, and you're bringing it. Subrat, the question to you is really, and I think we talked about having multiple generations and managing younger population, the chief of everything kind of perspective that Deepak ji was talking about. So there are various generations at work. Digital natives, digital adopters, late bloomers, what have you. There is a sense of purpose that you need to instill. How important is the culture in driving this engagement and driving and managing this workforce, which is diverse? And to the point that Raghavan just talked about, that, instilling this sense of purpose, communicating it, and talking about the why, what Sajid talked about earlier as well. How do you kind of talk about and get people's best effort or best version of themselves out for the organization?
Right. So, one of the things that I always look at, we always believe that we are living in the times that are most unique, most dynamic, and most changing. But, like Nietzsche said that, we all live in eternal cycles of recurrence. So there is always history to fall back upon in terms of how large-scale changes have been managed. The Gutenberg printing press was a huge discontinuity. And what it led to is pretty much, modern history and modern civilization. So one of the things that I always sort of hark back to is the idea that, a lot of this is discontinuous to us at this point in time. But in the long span of history, multiple discontinuities have happened, and it's always worth understanding how these discontinuities were taken care of. And so going back to your question, first, how does one manage change, communicate change? And this brings me back to what's called the Conway's law, that the structure of any communication system or any system that you build will be isomorphic to the structure of your organization. And therefore, if you want an agile sort of outcome in terms of products, projects, and everything that we spoke about, Scrum Masters and things of that kind, then the structure of the organization has to undergo a change, which has to be isomorphic to the way you are going to be working today. And therefore, the first part of making sure that the communication, the change, etc., is addressed right, is to actually question the structure of the organization, how flat it is, how non-hierarchical it is, the speed, the way the information is passed. Do they follow traditional modes of communication, or are you using all the modes that are available at this point in time? It's like the Gutenberg printing press moment. So that's one. Second, the relevance of the conversation or the change to each individual is different. It is difficult. It is not something that people are normally used to. But you have to find what actually works for cohorts that are different within your organization. And if there is a large organization like we have, you find all kinds of cohorts, and you'll run out of generation X, Y, Z and letters of the alphabet if you truly take a large organization like ours to actually figure out the cohort. So these cohorts have to be distinctly identified. And they could be not just demographic cohorts, they could be, overlaps between demographic and other cohorts. And you have to figure out what the, core of their sort of aspirations, ambitions, how they view change, what is it in, what's it in it for them when you are actually putting together a change agenda. And then communicate to them in not just the language, but also the medium, because that old McLuhan sort of moment is absolutely true right now. The medium is the message. When you write in 140 characters or 280 characters, you write differently from how you used to write an email. And that itself changes the message. And therefore, all of these things have to come together. I'm rambling a bit here, but it's a ramble because there is no clear answer. And you need to be a bit more appreciative of the fact that there are various cohorts within the organization, and medium and message both matter when you are talking about change back to them, apart from the content of the message.
So that I think I just see Vinti having posted the questions on the chat box. So please, people, if there are questions, send them in. So I'll put everybody in spot. In the meantime, the questions can keep coming in. So let me just borrow the line Raghavan talked about, and maybe Raghavan, you can start off. Leaders wanted at the moment of change, and that's been the constant theme. What's the one skill? And the question is for everyone, so you can just think about it. What's the one skill, not skill, let's say one competency that you look at in leaders when you hire or you get them in your team? One thing.
I think it's the learning muscle. At least personally, I look at the learning muscle. And no matter what their age is, if they can learn quickly, they can adapt quickly.
Okay. Sajid?
I'd just say, tolerance or the ability to be able to handle a VUCA world, right? A volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world, and yet carry people along.
Okay. Subrat?
You should have come to me first. Everybody's picked up my points. But anyway, you listen, I think the way the metaphor I use is that you need to hold a microscope in one hand and a telescope on the other. That's what the leader has to do today. There is the ability that you should have to dive absolutely down into the details. Like Deepak said, because the people expect that they will come and talk to you regardless of the hierarchy in between. And, you can say, no, you can't. I mean, there is a hierarchy in between, but they expect. And therefore, your conversation can sometimes go down to that sort of the level of the microscope and what it sees from there. And on the other hand, you have to hold a telescope. So that's what I would say that a leader should be able to do. Okay.
Deepak?
Change fast for change.
Change fast for change. Wonderful. Vinti, are the questions coming in? In the meantime, I have another question. Since it's about technology and Deepak talked about social media sites, what's the one site or one social media site that you can't do without? What are you addicted to? Subrat, since you wanted to go first, to you first.
www.accessbank.com. Everybody should go there. It's an absolutely addictive site.
It's not a social media site.
Go there, then you'll find out. But no, I'm not really addicted to any site, but I find the whole idea of Clubhouse, which is now doing audio first, no recording, absolute real time, and that absolutely fascinating. So I'm not addicted, but I do drop into Clubhouse quite a bit these days.
Sajid, I'll get you last because I know everybody will say Google. And
it doesn't look like anybody's saying Google at the moment, so neither will I.
Okay, Raghavan.
I just pick WhatsApp. That's where I spend a lot of my time on.
Okay, Deepak ji.
I think he's right. WhatsApp is getting integrated into the business like anything. So WhatsApp, yes.
Okay. Sajid, all yours.
Email. Probably email. I just spend way too much time on email.
Okay. And last question from me, again, a quick rapid fire kind of a question, since it's about optimism. One thing that this year you're really optimistic about, not the vaccines, nothing about COVID, but in business terms, what are you most optimistic about? Sajid?
I'm just optimistic about, thought of it like I'm generally very optimistic about everything. So I feel like I could pick from so many things. When you first started asking the question, I was going to say I'm optimistic about going to the beach, but then you said it has to be business related. So I'd have to say, yeah, I mean, I'm biased, so continued progress on digital payments. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Deepak ji?
I think the technology can do anything in any adverse situations. What we have seen in the last 1 year, I mean, this is the greatest tool, I think, because we are the consumers of the technology, but the providers are really putting a lot of solutions to the market. So any solutions like COVID come, I think we all are ready now.
Raghavan?
I feel growth through innovation. I think I'm very optimistic about that, at least on the business side. On the fun side, I would hope that RCB makes a comeback and wins the IPL title this year.
Yeah. Okay, Subrat?
I think you can give the award for optimism to Raghavan already.
I was about to say that. Ain't happening.
I'm from Bangalore, supported the damn team for 13 years. But yeah, I mean, that's really optimistic. But my view is that, especially during COVID, Bharat held up. And what we are seeing now is Bharat possibly taking the economy along in terms of growth. So I'm hoping that this is the moment. This year is the moment when, we do see a fairly sort of turbocharged Bharat, because for us to grow as an economy and an overall basis, we need Bharat to grow. So I'm hoping that continues, and I'm hoping all the best of the technology and digital minds solve not just India problems but Bharat problems as well.
Wonderful. I actually can't thank all of you enough. Wonderful, fascinating conversation. I've had I haven't had this kind of a fun in a long, long time. Hopefully you also had equal amount of fun, and I hope it was energizing as well. But for me, I think what I take away from this conversation is the fact that I'm actually optimistic about the human spirit, and to see the kind of stories, rich stories that have come from Indian Oil, or even all of you, as you spoke about how you are looking at driving progress in various ways, is not only inspiring, but I think it's humbling as well. So in gratitude, I thank all of you for participating. Over to you, Vinti.
Thank you so much, Raj, for such an engaging panel. I think throughout the day we had surfeit of ideas, stories, best practices, and so much of engagement happened during the breakout rooms also. I would request now Yuvraj to give the concluding remarks here by what is his takeaway. He's the host of the entire track, and he heads HR at the Make My Trip. He's been a wonderful support all throughout. So Yuvraj, over to you.
I think thanks a lot, Vinti. And I think at the outset, thanks a lot to Raj Kamal. I think that Raj, it was not planned that you should be the super host.
That was penalty. That was
it was carefully planned, because we all knew that you are the one who can really do it. And I think that fantastic. At the end of almost 3 hours, I'm sort of getting summary of the whole 3 sessions in a manner that there's no summary of tech innovation, and it cannot really be summarized that where are we looking at and what are we really looking at. We had conversation starting with Vikalp, wherein he talked about 50 million getting scaled up in 13 days, trying to solve a universal problem in the country pertaining to Arogya Setu. On the other extreme, we are also talking about some organizations having issues, whether it's in terms of info security or an email or the communication. So look at the spectrum. I think the spectrum of technology and what opportunity it offers to the organization is huge. It is huge in terms of opportunity. It's huge in terms of the mammoothness, and it is also huge in terms of impact what it can create to the organization. I think what I take out from here is that, very clearly, it's very important for the organizations to define its context. Your context can't be mine, my context can't be yours. And what I felt is that, there are three elements which will define the context for every organization, which will be business, customer, and the market. As somebody mentioned about it, that business, customer, and the market will define the context. And organizations will have to decide that what is the right intersection of people and technology, what they need to adopt, and drive adoption within the organizations, really take organizations to the next level, sort of a thing. So I think clearly different contexts for different people. You need to get it defined with the help of business and the customers and the organization. And people and tech intersection point, what I felt was very, very well articulated by Sajid, and that will define how successful you are. I think I also feel that somewhere organizations will have to look at overall technology as a part of Maslow's hierarchy. Like the organizations will also have their different need in terms of their scale, in terms of their evolution, in terms of their business model. It will be important for the organizations to get the right intersections in place. You can't really be over ambitious, which should be out of sync from the organizational business model. You can't be undermining, and you can't be doing things which are underpicked from what your requirements are. Beauty would be for the organization to get it right, and if they get it right, I think that they can make it. So those are some of the thoughts which I had, and at the end, I think I should say that in a hugely successful, and I think that great conversation, it got built up by Vikalp by his talk around Arogya Setu, and ended up with 4 of great panelists with Deepak, Sajid, Raghavan, and Subrat, brought in huge amount of wisdom and huge amount of thought leadership on the overall approach. I should thank once again Rajkamal, Preeti, our co-curator for the session, Vikalp, who spoke earlier, our 3 of the guys, Sukrit, Prabhanjan, Vikas, who handled the breakout rooms, Vinti and Dashna, who had been always the support, Sajid, Raghavan, Deepak, and Subrat for bringing their point of views very, very succinctly. Thanks a lot to each one of you. Great sessions, and I personally learned a lot. Thank you so much, Rajkamal. Thanks everyone once again. Thanks a lot, Vinti. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining. Look forward to hosting you again for the last day of the summit tomorrow, which will happen on the Byte platform on a very intriguing and interesting topic on diversity and inclusion. Thank you all for joining. You all have a great evening.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye-bye.